I want to ask the group here off of last night's game, and I'm serious about this. How am I to talk today about the 3-6 Miami Dolphins? And the reason that I ask you this question, okay, because I'm doing a lot of reading these days during these dark times. And Mark Twain has the quote, and it hit me in the heart, this quote: "It's better to be an optimist who is sometimes wrong than a pessimist who is always right." I have been the pessimist who is always right about the Dolphins for 25 years, and it's a suffering. I don't want to live my life like this. I also don't want to live a life that has to pay attention to last night's game. Has to pay attention because a 2-6 team is winning to make themselves 3-6, and it's, to me, and they've got an easy schedule the rest of the way.
Yes.
So it's going to be another one of these dumbass dances of try to get there, and if you get there, like physically crawling on your hands and knees, and then lose in the first round because you spent the season losing. And it's just another recyclable, but that's not the mood today when you go on the West Coast and win a football game.
That was a big win for the Dolphins. I know you don't want to hear that today, but it puts them back into the playoff mix. It really does, Dan. I mean, you don't think this team with Tua, they're a different team with Tua. We can all agree. We can get to why is Tua trying to tackle someone when he throws an interception a little bit later, but you could agree this is a different team with Tua, and when their wide receivers are healthy, the defense is coming around. Like, I could see this team making it to the playoffs and possibly winning a game or two.
See, I hate this.
Really?
Yeah, because if
But Dan, that's what football is. It's hope.
So I do this with the Saints today. If you're driving through New Orleans right now and they're talking about that victory the same way,
right?
You're like, that's ridiculous. You're like listening. Anybody who turned 3-6 or 3-7 yesterday with a win, you're not listening to that show and being like, you know what? I do think that team can make a playoff run. If you've got 6 or 7 losses by this point in the season, 6 or 7 losses, I'm not counting on you to make a deep playoff run.
I understand that, but the conferences are different. So the Green Bay Packers are the 7th seed right now. They're 6-3. I don't think the Saints think they're going to catch them. But in the AFC, that final playoff spot is 5-5, and they're 3-6.
Yeah, but the final playoff spot. This is what I'm telling you about this damn sport. That's so funny. All right, you leak in as a 6 seed, and what? You're gonna go lose. Like, it's just because the playoffs are big.
Here you go. You play. Who are you gonna play in the first round? The Bills. Well, you don't want to play the Bills. That's not gonna be a good situation.
That's a defeatist attitude.
Hopefully the Chiefs fall. Yeah, look at this. How do you talk about this team? Second place Miami Dolphins, huh? Clicking on all cylinders now.
Yeah.
They haven't been healthy all season. They missed their quarterback for 4 games. Their top wide receiver had a mysterious knee surgery that no one knew about, that we only found out about because of his detainment, not arrest. And in said detainment, not arrest, he injured his wrist, which he wasn't able to play or able to practice on Friday, but he played through it. He's been hurt. Jalen Waddle, who they paid a ton of money to, can't catch the ball worth a darn. Like, that's what's going on right now. Yeah. They had a guy that broke his orbital socket, and he's back to playing because he has a visor on now. And sure enough, you can break your orbital socket, but a week later, just put a piece of plastic in front of it, and you're good to go. Like, that's the team.
The defense was the revelation last night. If that defense can play the way it did against a healthy Rams offense, Aikman was saying last night, this is the best passing offense the Dolphins have faced all season, and they looked good. Like he said, Sealer being back, Javon Holland being back. I'm with you, Dan. This is not a Super Bowl team right now, but I don't agree with you that I'm fine being the 7 seed, fighting for a playoff spot. Even if you lose that game, it's better than just missing the playoffs.
Yeah. They sacked Matthew Stafford 4 times, which is significant because they had 10 sacks all season going into last night's game. They were second to last in the league in defensive sacks. They're going to win the next 2 games to get to 5-6.
All right. See,
okay?
that I'm not doing that with this team.
Why?
Okay, I'm just not.
I mean, it's
because
the
if Tua
Patriots.
gets hurt in the first quarter, you guys are all going to be surprised and then calling for his retirement.
Well, that's
like,
Chris Greer's
Well,
fault.
but that goes without saying. If
Right.
anybody
But, no,
gets hurt,
but I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Patrick Mahomes gets hurt right now. What happens to the Chiefs?
You trust Carson
you can
Wentz?
Say that about anybody.
They just won 2
I
Super
do.
Bowls, though. It's totally different.
it's not only totally different. What 2 Super Bowls and the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game in 20-something years. It's not just different there.
They're due.
It's also different from there's no margin for error left. These guys doing, that's a win, easy schedule, as if the Dolphins haven't been the easy thing on everyone's schedule for 5 weeks. It's funny.
I know, but now they're healthy and their quarterback is back and they're playing at home, the Raiders and the Patriots. Those are 2 games. I'm with Greg. They are going to win those games. I know you hate that, but they're going to win those games.
I look at the Dolphins' remaining schedule. There's a very reasonable pathway to 8 wins. What they're going to have to do is win a game you don't expect them to win. They're going to have to get to 9 wins. In this league, 9 wins is going to make the wild card, and
All right,
they can do
I
that.
don't trust a 9-8 team to win the Super Bowl.
No.
Maybe
the Packers did it as a 9-7 team.
I don't trust a 9-8 team. Stugotz, you can do outliers with me all day. You could do Trent Dilfer too. I don't want him as my quarterback. It's fine that he was a champion that one year. Don't want him or anyone like him ever as my quarterback.
The difference, though, is that if you do make the playoffs as the lowest seed instead of just having a season where you don't and you lose a couple more games, it's the difference between like a top 15 pick and like a bottom of the first round pick, right? Like that's sort of what you're playing for at that point.
If I may. Because being a
You may.
Dolphins fan for as long as Dan has been a Dolphins fan is different than any other fandom. And so, yes, I think if you look at the big picture and say, okay, that team could end up, whatever that number is, 9-8 and squeak into the playoffs, that's fine. But having to watch the entire way this team that you think is supposed to be explosive, but what they get, Tyreek Hill, a 1-yard touchdown just so he can celebrate. Like, it's not fun to watch. You're watching with your eyes covered because you don't want Tua to get hurt. You think the running game is good, but you really have a running game that's reliable that you can give a running back 30 carries to and let them carry you. No, it just doesn't seem like it's a sustainable thing, and it's certainly not fun to watch this way.
Not like last year. I mean, the drop-off offensively from last year is epic, but there's still a team that has a chance. If you're a Dolphin fan, you're allowed to hope. It's not illegal to hope.
I'm very frustrated by this. I can't help but be frustrated by this because this has to be exasperating to listen to if you're not someone who cares about the Dolphins. You're like, really? They're going to do here comes the 3-6 team because they won a Monday night game.
Right.
They won the most recent game played. And so the last month where we have spent declaring that the season is over now changes because you get to 3-6. I can't do this today.
I don't think it's just last night's game. I think it's the fact that they played at Buffalo the week before. They played a very good game. They lost that game, but it's a game they could have won. Then they won last night's game. Dan, last year in the NFC, you had the Packers get in as the 7th seed at 9-8. They went on the road. They beat Dallas. Like, I think Dolphin fans would take something like that.
Okay, and Dolphin fans will take something like that. Of course, they're 3-6.
I know.
They could be 5-4.
They'll take anything they will take that feels positive. And last night was positive. When Jessica speaks of draft picks, and this part, the evolution of this one has been super interesting to me in that sport where everyone's jostling for, do we want to trade you a 5th-round pick and a 4th-round pick? Because it's all about maneuvering to get value contracts, to find players you could just lock up because you got someone in the 4th round that no one was expecting you to, and then you can lock him up for a long time. So when she says the difference between a top 15 pick and a bottom 15 pick, I'd take right now the top 15 pick and say, be done with this Dolphin season.
Really?
I don't need to see any more from this Dolphin season. I don't, because what it is that they're playing with, having their quarterback run around in service of this 1-yard passes to Tyreek Hill because the window is now, and it has no vision whatsoever. I'd take the top pick now and be done with the rest of the season. But I don't know what to do. I honestly don't know what to do nationally with the fact that I'm sitting in a room full of people who, when they talk about the Dolphins, are going to get overly excited about getting to 3-6.
Well, I'm just saying they technically kept their season alive last night. I really think that's all any of us are saying.
But we're making fun of Jessica because her Steelers aren't that good with 2 losses, and we're saying that can't win deep in the playoffs.
That team is good.
That's crazy.
Thank you, Dan.
They're very good.
Thank you. I texted Lehman at like 11 p.m. last night and said they're going to talk about the Rams like they're the 2007 Patriots tomorrow morning. They're gonna be so excited about this. Guys, the Dolphins defense, they were good, but Matthew Stafford was bad. That Rams offense could not stop getting out of their own way. They couldn't stop making mistakes. They looked terrible last night. And that is a 500 team that has struggled this entire season. And yes, you can look down the schedule and look at Vegas and New England and the Jets and say, okay, we're going to win these games, but this is not an easy schedule. This is not an easy schedule,
baby.
and I love schedule talk. I see a loss, I see wins, but
It's
not
the
a lot
second easiest schedule in the league. It is empirically the second easiest.
After the next, there's 2 games that are easy, and then it gets tough again. But it's just, I'm not ready to. quit on this team yet. I'm just not ready to quit on this team. But the macro, Dan, it is sad that last year we felt like we had arrived. The Dolphins are a good team now. And we're a year later, and we're back to just being middle of the road. So I'm with you on the macro.
Middle of the road is not 3-6. It's losing 2/3 of your games.
Dan, this is a middle, like
Your starting quarterback missed 4 games.
Yeah.
This is a middle of the road team, like talent wise. This is not one of the worst rosters in the league. But to your point, that's the last place you want to be, directly in the middle. So it's just sad that we seem to have gone from a good team back to being just one of those middle teams. And that, I agree with you. That is sad. I thought that our run of being a good team was going to last longer than just last year.
But that's all predicated on the quarterback being healthy. When your quarterback is healthy, you're a good team. Is that fair to say?
You're a good offense.
Right?
What's wrong with a little positivity and hope? Like, what's going on here? Why can't we be happy? Why can't, like, yesterday was a big win. Why can't we be happy? Calais Campbell found the fountain of youth yesterday, apparently. Secured himself a spot in Canton last night. Like, we just want to be happy and positive about the team.
But
And it's like,
I'll
everyone's
tell you
like,
why.
no, boo,
because
let's be
someone
better.
has to tug on the other side of the rope when we sound ridiculous celebrating a 3-6 team.
You
as
guys
if-
sound ridiculous
as
thinking
if
they
it
don't have a
means
shot.
something to win the only game played in football. We have to talk about that just because it was the only game played yesterday. Like, and I really, honestly, like, I know that when Dolphin fans hear this is not what anyone wants to do 12 hours after that victory is hear that. They want to hear these guys celebrating this season as they have the last 20 and been wrong.
So give it to them.
No, you're letting the coaches and the front office off the hook if you're doing that. Because, yes, Tua got hurt. They knew that Tua had concussion issues going into the season. And what was their backup plan? What was the backup plan?
To not know that Skylar Thompson couldn't be their starter, and then to panic and then just go get a guy that they had to get, 5 seconds of preparation for.
I'm good not talking about the game at all for the remainder of the show. What I want to talk about is why Tua feels the need to tackle. And the Dolphins should have a guy on the field that when Tua throws an interception, that guy's job is to tackle Tua to prevent Tua
Gently.
from trying to very
Gently.
Two-hand touch. I mean, whatever, just shove him to the ground.
Block 'em.
Stugotz, which is it? Is it two-hand touch, shove him to the ground,
Pick him
gently,
up.
or
I don't
tackle
care.
him?
I mean-
What's the job you're offering? Somebody has to gently cradle him. Put it on the
restrain
pole.
him, hold him back.
At LeBatard Show, should the Dolphins give a roster spot to someone who gently cradles Tua whenever he throws an interception?
Or you just you get in his face, you say, hey, Tua, listen to me. When you throw an interception, you sit on the field crisscross applesauce. That's what you do immediately. You don't move. You don't run after the play. Wherever you are on the field, you sit crisscross applesauce. That's a funny visual of Tua just like in the middle of a play throwing an interception.
He's got a special skill to get his head wherever the action is. Like, it wasn't even just on this one. It was another offensive play. He's just reckless with his brain.
Well, in his defense, on this play where he tried to make a tackle, he's the last line of defense. He goes to the sideline.
No, he's not. There
Look
were
at the
so
other,
many
no,
Dolphins
look at
players.
No, there's 72's right there.
I'm telling you.
No, Chris, look at the full image.
At the
he
other
was
angle.
not the last line of. Look, there's a player right there in the shot. Even
He turned his body. He did not use his head.
You can't coach it out of Tua, apparently, because he did it last week in Buffalo where he's diving head first. He's trying to dive at people's legs, now, which, by the way, is kind of a dirty hit, but he's trying to dive at people's legs here. Also, like, Tua, I love Tua. I want Tua to succeed. I want him to be my long-term quarterback. I think that when he's healthy, he's good, obviously, with this system. However, it seems inevitable that this is going to happen again with the way that he plays, and he's not changing his style of play. So I don't know what you do with him because, like, you can feel bad for him. I feel bad for him that he keeps having these things happen, but he also keeps putting himself in positions for these to happen over and over again. So it's kind of like, Tua, buddy, I love you, but you're doing this to yourself. Like, what are we doing here?
I understand everything that everyone is saying. Totally reasonable. I will tell you guys again that warriors tend not to consider consequences. Otherwise, they wouldn't be warriors. And so what ends up happening in that situation is you are right. Not unlike George Pickens plays weird. Tua will find your knee with his head. I don't know how it is he's doing that, but he's scaring the hell out of us because we're all telling him, crisscross applesauce, stand up, sit down, have someone cradle you, something else. He's like, no, I'm going head first, right for the knees. Moving, running knees is where I'm going.
To the death of me.
He is so brave. I mean,
and in pursuit of let's get to 3-6.
No, you got to get to 3-6 before you can get to 9-7,
It
Dan.
beats
Duh.
the alternative.
Do you? I think mathematically you don't.
No, you
actually.
do when you're 2 and 6. You got to get to 3 and 6 before you can get to 97.
Well, yes, when
it's
you're
simple
2 and
math.
6. Yes,
Yeah.
when you're
3,
2 and
4,
6.
5,
But
6,
you don't.
yeah.
Yes, when you're 2 and
You go
6,
on a run.
you do have to get to 3 and 6.
Yeah.
to
You
get
don't
to
think this team
97.
has a shot, huh?
I'm just so tired of the illusion that this sport is. Yes, they have a shot because every 2-win team has a shot. That doesn't mean they all actually have a shot.
Yeah, but can I ask you a question? 9-0 Kansas City. What do you think about them?
Yeah, all one-score wins. And, yes, I thought last year, just like Stugotz, they could be beaten. And they won the Super Bowl. And when the Dolphins went there with a lot of hope, they didn't get anything.
I like that Chris is acting like this is that 2006 Steelers-Colts game where Ben Roethlisberger was the literal last player and saved the tackle by
I know in
tackling
this
the
shot
Colts player.
Armstead's there, but there's a shot when he's approaching where Tua is the last guy.
Was he a
Even
ghost?
if he is the
What's
last
happening
guy,
here?
so what? You're the quarterback.
Look, I'm just saying it
He
would have
got
been an
kneed in
odd
the
look
head.
if Tua was just oop, and he got out of the way and let the guy go down.
No,
the
you
field
say
and
it's an
score.
odd look. Jessica, you bring up that particular play call. It's one of the biggest arguments Stugotz and I have ever had on air. He finally, and he does this quietly, just wanders over to my side of the argument and makes the argument for a Dolphin roster spot going to someone to cradle Tua when he throws an interception. But on that play that you're talking about with Roethlisberger in a playoff game was the last line of defense. I'm yelling at Stugotz. The quarterback in every circumstance needs to, because he is so valuable against the salary cap, anytime he throws an interception, get the hell off of the field. Don't ever one time make a tackle. And Stugotz was arguing with me, not incorrectly, Dan, how ridiculous would it look if Tua throws an interception and immediately sprints away from all the action? Yes, it would look totally ridiculous. And I am here for it for the rest of his career.
Guys, there's a middle ground, which is don't put your head down. There is a middle ground, which is try to stay on your 2 feet with your head up and push the guy out of bounds. He put his head down and got kneed in the head.
He did not. He turned his body into that runner.
Yes.
He did not turn his – look at it again.
But Dan is saying sprint away from that runner.
And I agree
Yes.
with him.
Greg,
but he did
how
not,
is he not lowering his
Look
head?
at his
He's
head
on
right
his
now.
knee.
Guys, he doesn't know how to tackle. He's just a guy trying not to die.
He
in
tried
this
to
spot.
make a
no,
body
he's not.
tackle.
I would argue he's not trying
What?
not to die there.
Right.
He's not wrapping the player. He's just dropping his body and putting his head directly in front of his knee.
That is not a man
No,
looking to
no,
not
he isn't.
die. I mean,
You guys aren't seeing the same play I'm looking at.
Greg, he got hit in the helmet with a knee.
No, he didn't.
Yes,
Turn,
he
show
did.
the,
Back
show the
of the
Chris,
helmet.
show the
Yeah.
Chris angle.
Greg,
where
Did
the
it
ghost
happen
people
another
are playing.
time? Are you watching a different
Greg,
clip?
he does get hit by the runner's knee, hits him in the side of the helmet toward the bottom. It's not on his skull, but he is hit by a knee there by the runner. You see
there.
his helmet give there. I just don't think there is a middle ground here. I'm not arguing for the middle ground. I'm telling him to get down flat on the ground. Make sure no one can hit him. Get on your stomach, like fetal.
you're telling him to get off the field.
fetal position, whatever. Just whatever the way is.
Hey,
Whatever.
become a speed bump. Slow him down at least.
No speed bump. I don't want him anywhere near where the tackles are happening.
You guys don't look at the last couple games and say, wow, there's depth on this team. Jonnu Smith has become a great target for Tua. Yesterday, OBJ, 17 yards. There's weapons here.
Let's try it this way. Of the 3-win teams, this is the best one.
There you go, Dan.
I like it. Is that fair?
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, who's better than them with 3 wins?
I don't have
Nobody.
I don't have the schedule in front of me. I just was worried about this 20 minutes ago.
I think if we can convince Dan by the end of the show to be hopeful for the Dolphins, then we have given all fans hope. And I think it should be a goal for
Well,
you,
let's
Stu.
do it another way, because I'm accused all the time of being in an insulated bubble where I don't get the real feelings of America.
Yeah, bad fan.
That hurts so much.
I'm sorry.
You've really wounded me in a place that's
a
deeply
bad
personal to me. Yes.
You're incapable of being a fan.
Yes, no, I love when people judge my fandom as insufficient compared to their fandom. Coming from a total career homer. Lucy, I want to bring you in here because I want to know what you think of this talk as I wrestle with optimist, pessimist, what's the correct way to do this between the Miami audience and the national audience that's laughing at us as a Miami show because trying to talk yourself into 3 and 6 is pathetic 9 weeks into the season.
Aren't we supposed to be funny? Don't we want them laughing at us?
Good
Isn't
point.
that good? Right?
Very good
Laughing with us is what we prefer. Laughing because of things that we're doing.
Laughing. Yeah.
Mirthful, joyful. So you're experiencing, because I've seen you wander away. You ate an entire apple during this segment.
Okay.
An
in
apple
my
a day,
defense,
Dan.
we have randomly just started. Look, in my defense, we have randomly just started the show early. No one told me we were doing that. So I had to eat breakfast. Because guess what? What if I passed out? It would have been good content, but it wouldn't have been good for me.
Most
Or
important meal
even
of the
worse,
day.
what if I was cranky because I was hungry?
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
Now
an
I'm
apple
not.
makes you
Now
have more
I'm
than
in a good
coffee
mood,
does.
so I can be the optimist for your pessimist. You're welcome.
But you're surrounded by all of these people who are talking hopefully about a 3-6 team.
No, about a team that's about to be 5-6.
There you go.
Right.
Okay, if you look at the
There
NFL
you go.
standings, 2 weeks from now they're 5-6,
Well said.
and they're right back
It's
in
such
it.
a rallying
Yeah.
cry. It really is. It's what I signed up for when the Dolphins went all in this season. Can they get to 5-6 with the guaranteed 2 wins Cody gives you?
And don't let them get to 6-6, because if they do,
God forbid.
that is a statement.
Yep.
That win over the Packers to put them at 6-6, don't let that happen, America, because then there's a train and you can't stop that from moving.
Was it the last Brian Flores season where they finished the season on like the 7-game win streak against all teams with the below 500 record, and everyone was like, "Hey, how about the Dolphins?"
What a year.
My favorite of those was Chad Pennington, top 5 in MVP. They go 11-5 in one-score games, get to the playoffs, and get ransacked by Ed Reed in the first round and Ray Lewis by 30 points.
I think he was the runner-up, Chad Pennington.
Yeah, I think he finished second because they won all these one-score games. You know who that is this year? The Chiefs are that this
You're hard
year.
to impress. Like
Yeah.
a team wins by 1 score. That does all these 1-score wins. It's just like there's more than just
No,
Super Bowl,
Chris,
Dan.
Chris, it's
A
not
playoff win
yes,
would be amazing.
Yes, but this is the part, though, where I stop you, because the Dolphins have been on this particular treadmill in my lifetime, turning your father, the homer, who used to cover a national team. They became a regional team because of all of the 20 years of that. Oh, if we get there, we'll get a game, and then we'll go through Wanstead and Jimmy Johnson and run them out of town. And the 20 years after that, if we get a game in the playoffs, it'll mean something. And no team in the sport that puts into its rules equality where all the games are close, no team in the sport has done less playoff winning the last 20-something years than the Miami Dolphins. I've seen in my lifetime over the last 20 years, I've seen the Bills go from no playoff appearances in 17 years to now they're dominant. I've seen the Lions go from international laughingstock to now they're dominant. And you're still arguing with me 20 years after I had to endure 7 years of arguing about Tannehill. You're still saying, hey, 3-6 and hope. And I'm like, bleep out of here.
The Jets are still the Jets, though. I mean,
I don't understand. When we argue you need a ring to be successful, like we're bad, but the Dolphins need a ring to impress you.
No, they need to not
Rings
be
are nothing with this
3-6
guy.
with him guaranteeing that they'll get to 5-6.
Don't
and
let
that's
him get
what
to
I'm
6
supposed
and
to
6.
celebrate.
just view it as they're already 5-6. Try
One
it
and
that
oh.
way.
Still a losing record.
1-0 in the last one.
In the hunt.
I mean,
Guys, Dan's being very reasonable about this take.
Nah.
Okay.
I see what you're doing, though, Dan.
What happened to Yes and there, nah? What happened? Yeah.
Why couldn't Brian Flores just get on that boat? Just illegally meet and tamper with Tom Brady. Everything would have been different.
I think what Dan's doing is he recognizes that everybody wants to see him unhappy and to see him be wrong. And so he's basically getting the rest of the country onto the Dolphins, having them cheer with us. Don't let them get to 6-6. The rest of the country will be looking at you, Dan.
statement.
Correct. Fans have to play the cards they're dealt.
Yeah.
Okay. Dolphin fans right now have been dealt a bad hand with Tua's 4-game injury with a 3-6 record.
It's a bad head more than a bad hand.
Okay, but the hand they're dealt right now is that we have 2 very, very, very winnable games. We're going to be 5-6, and then talk to me. That's the
Don't
hand.
let him
And-
get to 6-6.
And if the local media continues to say, "Hey, how about 5-6?" then the front office will continue to have no pressure on
No,
them
that's
to deliver
absolutely
something
not
better.
true. I wrote when Tua was hurt, I wrote a column second guessing their whole roster construct. This was the classic team with Tua's vulnerability. This was the team that needed a Joe Flacco and Andy Dalton. Somebody experiences a backup, and they didn't do it. That's a fatal flaw if they don't turn it around and make the playoffs.
I want to understand from you guys who are watching a half a season of football, and we're sitting here measuring it every single week, and we measure it even though we can't predict what kind of injuries there are, we can only guarantee you that there will be many, many injuries. When the Dolphins win that game on Monday night, with a point total, by the way, that is fine, but I don't think it's sustainable to consider that you're going to hold teams consistently like the Rams to 15 points and get into one of these games where they decide they're going to kick nothing but field goals. And they're going to, like, I'm watching the game and I legitimately can't tell. Is this the Dolphins doing it to them with 4 sacks, or is this the Rams just not functioning the way they normally function for whatever the reasons are that I'm not understanding, and they're getting stuck with 5 field goals instead of winning that game 35-23? When you go across the country and you play a team that's otherwise mediocre in a mediocre division that we're assuming San Francisco is going to win because we're not expecting Arizona to stay atop it, but all the teams in that division have 4 losses because everybody's got 4 losses because there are more bad teams in the league than there are good teams in the league.
For sure.
How do you do the analysis on what happened last night that isn't just merely, well, they're 3-6 and now they can be 5-6. I'm talking about real measurements about what you're watching, where they're a small underdog in that game because all of the teams are just about the same. And in this particular game, the Rams had to settle for 5 field goals in a way they don't usually have to settle for 5 field goals. Is it something that I'm just obligated to give the Dolphins credit for that? Or can I look at the Rams and be like, well, that's not normal for them?
I think most people don't expect their team to be fully formed or be ready to roll until playoff time. So you could argue that the Dolphins, without their quarterback for a little while, with some injuries they have to work through, figuring out which weapons are the best weapons, Jonnu Smith probably the most reliable one. So you're saying to yourself, okay, just stay in the hunt while we figure this out. By week 16, 17, maybe this is the 70-point offense again. Maybe not, but it might be something better that gives you some hope. I'm just trying to let Dan know how to be a fan a little bit and not rule out your team for the rest of the season.
This is what fans do. I guarantee you Rams fans were doing the same thing last night. Their team looked dreadful. That offense looked dreadful, but they're looking at their schedule and trying to figure out what's the path for us to get to the playoffs. Dan, the Jets have never looked worse. I spent the entire plane ride home figuring out how the Jets could make it to the playoffs because that's what fans do. We hope.
You say that's what fans do, but that team has a coach and a quarterback that have won Super Bowls. This one has been watched for 2 decades in Miami, and you guys have been wrong for 2 decades making this argument with me. Like for 2 damn decades, you guys have been wrong every single time, hoping every single time.
But what are you afraid of? Because we're choosing to be happy here. You're afraid of being happy and trusting this team and then looking silly at the end of the year? Who cares?
Right.
Look silly then, be sad then. Why are you going to be sad for 18 weeks of the year? Be happy now. Be sad at the end.
A year ago, Tua made the Pro Bowl, stayed healthy. The Dolphins had the best or second best offense in the entire league. No apologies for coming into this season with high expectations. And I don't blame the whole thing on Tua missing 4 games, although that's a huge part of it. Since Tua's been back, they've scored 27, 28, and 23 points. That's not bad. That's much better than it had been. And the defense is healthier than it's been all season. Zach Seiler back in the lineup was huge last night.
Seiler.
And they were very good. You know, they had
Tomato.
Matthew Stafford looked bad because the Dolphins made him look bad. And so, you know, I'll be as optimistic as I want to be. While also
I get scared
being
of
realistic.
Sealer's name too, though. I got to be honest. It's happened the entire
It's
time
Seiler,
he's been on the
Seiler,
team. No,
you know,
I
it's
get scared.
ridiculous.
I got to be honest. I was scared when we sat across from him. I thought I was going to say Seiler as well.
Yeah, it should be Seiler.